Hello, grade 5. I hope you're doing okay. It's Ms.ola. I'm going to be your English teacher for this quarter 4. Before starting, I just want to show you what we're going to take throughout all that quarter. We're going to start with some objectives, some acquired skills. For week 1, we will work on our reading strategies, we'll work on target vocabulary, we'll work on vocab strategy, we'll work on comprehension skills, comprehension strategy. For week 2, we will work on our writing skills. These are so far for week 1 and for week 2 what we're going to do. Inshallah, today we're going to start with reading strategies, from where we're going to work throughout this quarter regarding to reading. I will provide you with a book contains of 28 pages. It calls Storm Warriors. Very lovely story, short story. It's like summarizing. We will use to apply our knowledge of reading strategies. So it's not going to be like a story, like a typical story. Furthermore, it would be like more something that you could apply your knowledge that we will learn throughout the first week together. Okay. But before starting right away, also I want to show you that we have for our reading strategies some concepts that we should put in our minds. Here I have before, I have during, I have after reading. What should I do before reading? What should I do during reading? What should I do after reading to be a good reader, to be a productive and comprehensive reader? Well, before reading, we need to preview, make connections, predict, and ask questions. During reading, we need to self-check our knowledge, to make connections between what we know and what we already getting to know, to predict. So as you see here, we have like some things that we will find in common between before, during, and after reading strategies. Ask questions, make inferences, and summarize. After reading, we need to evaluate. Make connections, predict, ask questions, make inferences, not just one inference, but try to make some inferences, and to summarize. Here I have lots of things that they are in common, like make connections here, make connections here, make connections here, predict here, predict here, predict here, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. But before doing all that, before reading, we need to preview, to read like the short preview of the story, of the passage, of the paragraph, etc. Here we need to self-check after previewing, after making or asking some questions to ourselves before reading. Here we're going to make connections, but not just before the preview and the thing itself. Well, here we're going to make connections between self-check, the preview, and our own concept. Also, we're going to predict, we'll ask questions, and make inferences. Here, it's like cliches. We just need to learn, we need to know furthermore about all these things. Here, in more academic way, before reading, what should we do, during reading, and after reading. This is for the students who are seeking to be top, to reach their peaks at reading, to be very excellent. This is the highly academic way for readers. Before reading, we need to activate prior knowledge, to make predictions, to set a purpose for reading, frontal load vocabulary, preview the chapter using text features. These are very important before reading if you are seeking, if you are looking forward to being a good reader. During the reading, you need to highlight selectively because you will find lots of information and lots of connections. So you need to highlight the important points in a selective way, in a well-selected way. This is very important too. Check out vocabulary and bold-faced terms. Generate questions, which is ask questions. Make connections. Text to text, text to self, text to world, very important too. That's what exactly I was just telling you about now when I showed you the picture about making connections. How to make connections, Ms.ola. In academic way, making connections means you could make a connection between a text to text, text to yourself, or text to the world. Your prior information, your prior knowledge, you can just make connection between them and between the text that you're already dealing with, working on. Adjust your reading rate. Use context clues, very important. Reread if you get confused. You could reread the whole passage all over again if you just do not want to be confused. Visualize when we read anything, for example, about animals, we could visualize, you could picture, you could just picture, make some pictures in your mind, in your imagination about the animals. Okay. Annotate the text or take notes. You could just write down some notes. You could take some notes for yourself. You could notice figures, images, and charts. If the passage itself has all of that, you just need to notice that because that's an indication that we have some thing that we need to evaluate after reading. Okay, after reading, خلاص, I finished reading the whole passage. What should I do to be well reader, to be good reader? You need to summarize the chapter in writing or orally. So you could summarize the chapter orally or in writing. Very important. Respond to questions that you already asked yourself on. Or if you have questions regarding to the passage, regarding to the comprehension, regarding to the article, whatever you've been asked for reading, you need to respond to questions. Make a graphic organizer summarizing key information. Recall key concepts, terms, questions. Discuss with a partner or a group. If you, after finishing, if you did all of that, and if you start discussing the points one by one with a partner or your friends or your family, that means you got the gist, you got the core of the comprehension. I'm going to illustrate, I'm going to demonstrate everything for you now in detail. So let's start right away.
More importantly, how can understanding context clues make me a better reader? Let's get started. Context clues are hints a reader can use to discover the meanings of unfamiliar words and phrases. Did someone say discover? Yes, Detective Waddle. When we read, we have to look for clues to discover the meanings of words we don't know. Let me show you. When we read, sometimes we will come upon an unfamiliar word that we don't know and have trouble sounding out. We could choose to stop reading and find a dictionary, but this can take away from our comprehension or understanding of the story by interrupting the flow. Now, what was happening? This is why using context clues is so important. I know what clues are, but what is this thing you call context? Context is like the setting of a word. You can probably guess what is missing from this picture based on the setting or context around the missing object. Sure, a dog. Using context clues is similar. Con is a prefix meaning with. Text means written words. As a reader, you are looking for clues within the written words to help you understand unfamiliar words or phrases. How will I know where to find them? A word's context includes the words and sentences around it. This is where you can find clues to the meanings of a word that you don't know. What clues do you see? Well, we know Katie was something, so we need to read the rest of the sentence to figure this out. When her little sister kept messing up her room. So what could Katie be if her little sister is messing up her room? Mad? Frustrated? No, this word starts with an A. Angry? Aggravated. Katie was aggravated when her little sister kept messing up her room. Aggravated makes sense when you consider the context. Exactly. Authors use different types of context clues. They might use examples, synonyms, antonyms, or even definitions. For instance, the restaurant's ambiance, including its quiet music, flowers, and candlelight, made it a perfect place for Valentine's Day. If you don't know what ambiance is, the examples, quiet music, flowers, and candlelight, let you know that ambiance is the special atmosphere or mood of a particular environment. Sometimes authors use synonyms or words that mean almost the same thing. The child's ability to perform gymnastics was apparent or obvious at an early age. If you are unfamiliar with the word apparent, the synonym clue obvious makes the sentence easy to understand. Sometimes authors will use antonyms to help the reader grasp an unfamiliar word by stating the opposite. Carla was meticulous with her assignments, unlike her brother Ralph, who scribbled all over the page. If you don't know what meticulous means, the antonym phrase scribbled all over would let you know that Carla was neat and careful with her assignments, unlike her brother Ralph. Sometimes authors actually provide definitions within the text if using a less common word. Abby was repulsed by the spider crawling up her arm. She had a feeling of disgust and dislike. If you are unfamiliar with the word repulsed, the author clearly defines it as a feeling of disgust and dislike. I can find context clues in the words. Exactly. Remember, context clues can be examples, synonyms, antonyms, or definitions. Let's read a paragraph and look for the context clues a reader might find if he or she was unfamiliar with the underlined words. It was time for the band to march on the field. The crowd was ecstatic. Ecstatic? I don't know what that means. Well, this would be a good time to look for context clues. Remember, if you can't find a clue in the sentence you just read, you should keep reading. A word's context includes the words and sentences around it. Let's start again at the beginning so we can gather all the context surrounding the word ecstatic. It was time for the band to march on the field. The crowd was ecstatic. People screamed and cheered, showing their excitement. I see some clues. That's great. What do you see? People screamed and cheered and showed excitement. Very good. Screamed and cheered would be examples of people who are ecstatic. People who are ecstatic are excited. Let's keep reading. The music intensified or increased in volume. What does intensified mean? Well, let's look for some context clues. I think I see one. Increased. Very good. Increased is a synonym for intensified. Let's keep reading. Unlike her timid friends, Morgan was unafraid to perform in front of the roaring crowd. What is timid? What context clues can we find? Unlike means opposite. Morgan was unafraid. So, if Morgan's friends are the opposite of Morgan, then her friends are afraid. Yes, timid means afraid or shy. The author used an antonym as a clue to help us. Let's continue. After the show, the crowd gave a standing ovation. Ovation? There aren't many clues in this sentence, except we know there is standing going on. Maybe we should keep reading. Great idea. The fans stood and clapped to show their appreciation for such a great performance. Wow! The author uses a definition as a clue to help the readers understand what is happening. An ovation is when the whole crowd stands, claps, and cheers. That was a great context clue. Yes, it was. So remember, context clues are hints a reader can use to discover the meanings of unfamiliar words and phrases. And authors use different types of context clues, including examples, synonyms, antonyms, and even definitions. I can find clues in the words. Yes, you can. Congratulations, Detective Waddle. You are a first-place detective of context clues. Thank you for joining me at Grammar Songs. Bye.
So, now guys, regarding to before reading or reading strategies, we will find lots of vocabulary which we call front load vocabulary. If I have lots of vocabulary and I cannot understand the meaning of it while reading, what should I do? Well, you need to front load vocabulary, which means to find the clue context, as we just saw now in the video, how we could get the context clues, very important for us, by examples, definitions, etc. So this is the first point of before reading, activate prior knowledge. We're going to talk about those furthermore right now. Are you ready? Let's start.
This is an introduction to critical reading strategies. Our essential question is, how do I approach a text so that I can read for understanding and to complete a task? There are three aspects to approaching a text. What do we do before reading or pre-reading? What do we do during reading? And what do we do after reading? Before reading, the first thing you're going to do is read the task. What is it that you're going to have to do after you read the text? Now, this might be something as simple as just understand the text, but it can also involve some of the following. Write a summary, compare or contrast with another text, or prepare for a debate or discussion. Next, you're going to scan the text. Have a look at the title, images, any subheadings, and make a prediction. When you're making your prediction, consider both what you think the text will be about after looking at the title and the images, and also what you already know about this topic. Predictions are important because it gives our brain something to watch for as we read, and it gets us ready to understand the information that's coming our way. Next, you're going to number the paragraphs. This is an easy step, but a really important one. It helps you refer back if you're writing a paragraph or an essay, or if you're in a discussion. It also helps you find key information and help other people find what you're talking about. Next, you're going to read the first and last paragraphs. Once you've read these important paragraphs, add to or change your prediction. Most of these strategies are good for non-fiction texts, and you can use them for fiction, but I would not do this step with a story. You don't want to read the end before you've read the whole story. Now we come to what we do during reading. Once we've done some pre-reading and some thinking, we're going to read the text. For some of us, this is tough. Put your pencils down. Read it once through for a general understanding. Then you're going to read the text again. Now you pick up your pencil and you're going to mark the text. This can be done in lots of different ways. Some methods that we're going to look at are the following four. One of them is to circle keywords and underline claims. Another method is called insert symbols, and it is what it sounds like. Another one that has a good name is writing in the margins. And finally, something that most of us are familiar with is highlighting anything that stands out. Now, some of these methods don't work very well if you're working with a textbook and you're not allowed to write in it. However, you can get around this by using sticky notes and flags and tabs. Let's have a look at method number 1, circling keywords and underlining claims. Keywords are words that are repeated, related to the topic, perhaps something that you don't know, or words that seem important somehow. Obviously, you don't count repeated words like the, but other key vocabulary words that are repeated might be important to your understanding. Claims are arguable statements, statements that someone could argue one way or another, and they might be backed up by statistical evidence, anecdotes, or expert testimony. This method is really good if you're trying to understand an argument. Method number 2 is inserting symbols as you read. You can choose your own symbols that have meaning to you, or you can start off with these ones. You can use a check mark if you know this already, or if you agree with something that you've read. An addition sign is for something new to you because it adds to your knowledge. A subtraction sign is when you encounter something that's different from what you thought. You can use an exclamation for something that surprises you. And a question mark isn't so much if you're confused about something, though you can certainly use it for that, but more about something that makes you wonder about more information or connections to something else. Method number 3 is writing in the margins. Now this one can be used in lots of different ways, and it is what it sounds like. You write all over the text, mostly in the margins where there's space. It can look a little something like this, where you draw arrows and add questions, make notes to yourself, and possibly along the side, add short summaries of what each section is about. This one is good if you have to summarize an article and just for general understanding. Highlighting standouts is a familiar strategy, but one that can be actually kind of hard to do, because we're often tempted to highlight way too much or not enough. But the key idea is that you are highlighting anything that either stands out to you because you make a personal connection, or perhaps something that you think is important. Now we come to what happens after reading. You're going to first reflect on your own ideas. Look back and consider, how was your prediction? Did your opinion change? What did you learn or enjoy or dislike about what you read? And can you make any personal connections? Next, reflect on your understanding of the text itself. Consider, do I understand the information? Can I identify the author's main point or argument? And what do I need to clarify about my understanding? Last, you're going to revisit your marked up text in order to complete the task. You can consider, do I understand the task now that I've read the text? And am I ready to complete the task? And the best part is you have this text that you marked up, and you made notes, and you can look back for all of the information you need to complete your task, whatever it might have looked like. Thank you for listening to Critical Reading Strategies.
So as you see, guys, as I told you about reading strategies, the previous video was mainly about demonstrating how you could understand each point of each part of reading strategies, whether it was before, during, or after reading. So now I guess you have a quite perspective about your strategies that you are supposed to follow before, during, and after reading. Now I'm going to show you another video. Let's how can we apply our knowledge? If I'm reading an article like the one that talking about, for example, seas or turtles or whatever, or seabirds, how I can apply my knowledge on it, Miss Ola. Before asking you to do your own task, to do your own assignment to apply your knowledge regarding to before, during, and after reading strategies, I'm going to ask you now to pay attention to that video, because it's pretty important to me to understand it. It's mainly talking about how you could apply all that information practically and efficiently. Okay, please pay attention. Thank you.
School on Wheels presents Reading Comprehension Strategies. Reading comprehension strategies are plans or steps that good readers use to understand what they are reading. These strategies come more naturally for some readers than others, but every student can benefit from consciously practicing these strategies when reading during tutoring. There are many strategies readers use when understanding text. In this video, we will cover 4 important ones: making connections, retelling, asking questions, and making predictions. To make these important strategies more concrete, let's look at how we could use them when reading The 3 Little Pigs with a student. Making connections. When good readers make connections, they hook new information from a text to information they already know. When this happens, learning and understanding take place. When you are working with an emerging reader, you can ask them specific questions throughout the book to help them make these connections. Eventually, they will learn to do this automatically. Readers can make connections in 3 different ways. Text to self. How would you feel if the wolf was trying to get in your house? Has something like this ever happened in your life? Are you like any of the characters in The 3 Little Pigs? Text to text. Have you ever read another book with pictures like these? Have you ever read another book about pigs? Does the wolf remind you of any other characters from a different story? Text to world. Have you ever heard of anything like this happening in your life? Have you ever seen someone do this? Have you ever been to a house made of straw, wood, or bricks? At first, it may seem unnatural to interrupt a reader to ask these questions. However, you will quickly see how periodically prompting readers with questions will increase reading comprehension. Use your best judgment to know how often to ask questions while a student is reading. Retelling. Retelling occurs when a reader can describe the important parts of a story in his own words. Different students may retell the same story in different ways, and this is fine as long as the reader can identify the main idea and key events in a story. You can help a young reader retell a story by asking questions like, what was the most important thing that happened in the story? Did this story teach us a lesson? What happened next? And after that? Having the student draw a picture of the main events of a story in the correct order is another way to promote this strategy. Listening to a reader retell a story will allow you to quickly assess her understanding of the text. Asking questions. Good readers ask lots of questions while they are reading. Sometimes the questions come up because they don't understand something mentioned in the story. Sometimes a question occurs because a trigger in the book piques a reader's curiosity. When reading with a student, it is a good idea to encourage the student to write down any questions that occur in a journal or reader's notebook. Some examples of questions may be things like, I wonder why the wolf wanted to get into the pigs' houses. Why did some of the pigs buy straw and wood instead of bricks? What does the word huffed mean? Asking questions while reading promotes reading comprehension because it gives a purpose for reading the book and it can make reading much more interesting. Making predictions. Making predictions about what will happen next in a story can help keep readers interested in the text. It can be fun to check their predictions as the text unfolds. You can help a reader make predictions by asking questions like, is this story fiction or nonfiction, real or pretend for very young students? What do you think will happen next? Do you think the wolf will be a good guy or a bad guy in the end? It can be fun for you and your student to jot down your predictions in a journal. At the end, you can check to see if your predictions were correct. Predicting what will happen next evaluates a student's ability to understand clues from the text to draw conclusions. When most of a student's predictions are correct, or at least reasonable, you know that the reader understands the text. Reading comprehension can be very tricky for struggling readers. However, being deliberate about using these reading strategies can increase both reading comprehension and overall enjoyment of reading. The more a student practices, the more she will be able to use these strategies automatically, almost without thinking about them. This will, in turn, lead to a better understanding of all school subjects and areas of study. Happy reading!
Okay, now I'm going to ask you for your assignment, which is going to be that book. I just want you to download it. I will support you with the link for downloading it. And what I'm going to ask you to do is mainly, according to the Word here, Microsoft Word, we're going to work from page number 6 till page number 9. What you are asked for, watching the YouTube videos that I'm going to provide you with, and of course book page 6 and 9, 6, 7, 8 and 9, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So here is the book. You're going to pick page number 6, here 3, 4, here is number 6. You're going to work here, number 1. You're going to apply your knowledge before, after, and during reading strategies. Here, you will start by reading this. You will find vocabulary that you cannot understand, like those. Try to understand their meanings according to the first video that I already showed you about the context clue, how you could find the context clue. It's very important for all of you, by having like an example, by having like a synonym, like have the definition of the word itself, etc. Very important to you. And you're just going to work this page, which is very short, that one's 1, 2, 3. That's what you are asked for doing. This is your homework. This is your first assignment. Your participation is very important to me as well. This is your first homework according to our schedule. Inshallah, we will have our own. You have 2 things. You have your homework and you have another thing. For the words that you cannot understand, here the vocabulary, I want you to make flashcards. Next session, there will be a competition between all of you guys. So I'm going, for example, to ask you questions regarding to the story, and I will see if you understand it or not. Also, I'm going to check the flashcards that I'm going to ask you to do for the vocabulary here. Like, for example, I want you to write down the synonym, the opposite of the word, and an example. So all the words, vocabulary in yellow would be asked to give me all the information related to it. Number 1. Number 2, apply your knowledge. Apply your knowledge regarding to before, during, and after reading. And be prepared for the questions that I'm going to ask you as a competition between grade 5, all of you guys. You will be asked for it. The last thing that I'm going to ask you for, to check the online websites and be prepared for a quiz. Quiz is not going to be it's not N-O-T. It's not going to be this week, of course. After finishing the reading strategy, we will end up having a quiz. Is that understood? Also, I want you to write down the conclusion and the generalizations. I want you to find out the Greek and the Latin roots, which is the synonyms, antonyms, the definition, everything related to the vocabulary that I'm going to ask you to give me the whole information related to it. as I told you, the vocabulary in yellow. Now I finished my lecture regarding to what you should do before, during and after reading. But before saying goodbye, I want you to summarize the whole information with you now. So let's summarize in 2 minutes, and that's it.
Working out the main idea of a text is an important skill because it helps us to better understand what we're reading. When determining the main idea, ask yourself, what is the main point the author wants me to know? Let's look at some strategies that can help us determine the main idea. Use titles and headings. If the text has a title or headings, they normally provide clues as to the main idea. Look at the title of this text, Growing Animals. The main idea of this text is something to do with animals and growing. It's a good start, but we'll need to use some other strategies to be more accurate. Use topic sentences. Another strategy for working out the main idea of a passage is to look at the topic sentence. A topic sentence is the first sentence of a paragraph and provides the main idea. This topic sentence tells us the paragraph will probably be about animals that grow in different ways. This confirms our prediction from earlier that the paragraph will have something to do with animals and growing. Use concluding sentences. Concluding sentences can also provide clues as to the main idea. The last sentence of a paragraph is usually a concluding sentence. The last sentence of this paragraph reads, "The different ways animals change as they grow is fascinating." It matches the topic sentence and the title and confirms that the main idea of this paragraph is that animals grow in different ways. Look for repeated ideas. Let's practice this strategy with a new text. This text doesn't have a title or headings, and because it's not an information text, it doesn't have topic or concluding sentences. But if we read this text and think carefully about it, we can start to see that an idea is repeated. The main idea seems to be that Claire was relaxed on a beach that she had all to herself. All these strategies are important to know, as not all strategies will always work. Besides, using multiple strategies together will help us build a more accurate main idea. Working out the main idea is easy. EasyTeaching.
Thank you guys for your consideration, your time. Now I've just finished everything regarding to our first lecture for our quarter 4. Hopefully you understand. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email, or of course we have our culture for discussion according to the schedule. I'm ready for your answers, for your questions. I'm going to answer all your questionnaires, so do not worry about that. Hopefully you get a good day. Bye bye.